Hi everyone, welcome to a Channeler's channel. I'm Tracy and I'm your host. And if you've been listening, then you know that I channel messages from my spirit guide, Whitehawk. And if you don't know and you haven't been listening, then what I do is I channel messages from my spirit guide, Whitehawk. Welcome. I'm very glad that you've come today. So today's topic that we will be doing is on social media. And as it goes, I never really know where Whitehawk's going to go with this. I'm as surprised as you are when it happens. It could be on boundaries. That's where I'm thinking it's going to go. But again, I don't. So let's get started. Let's go get Whitehawk and let's see what he has to say about social media. Indeed, he says. Social media. What is it to me, he says. Social media is nothing to me, he says, but really a bunch of people getting together and talking and communicating and sometimes even spoiling each other's fun. Boo-hoo. But social media, he says, can be a great place to meet and to greet. But there is the other shoddy side of social media, he says. The bad side, the nasty side. He says, and you really do all know what it is that I'm talking about, he says. That is the side where people think it is okay to say nasty things, to make awful remarks, bad remarks, he says. It is not okay, he says, to make those bad remarks. It is awful, in fact, he says. Why would anyone, he says, want to make such awful remarks, if not for, well, their own gratification, really, he says, is it not? For them to make those remarks, there must indeed be a very, very innate need, innate hate, he says, within themselves to degrade others, to bring others down, he says. How uncourageous or incourageous, he says, to say such awful things to people. He says, it is too easy, I tell you. Too easy to say such awful remarks to people, he says, for you do not have to see them. You do not have to stand in front of them. You can just say what it is that you want to say and think that there is no ownership to it, he says. And think that, hey, they can't catch me. Hey, they can't do anything to me. Ha, ha, ha. So I'm just going to say whatever the bleep it is I want to say. And he's like, tisk, 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 children. This is naughty, naughty behavior. And he says, I do not condone this behavior in any or all of you. In fact, he says, I would ask that you go inside yourself and say, why is it indeed that I am saying these remarks? Why do I feel the need to state that in such an angry way? He says, for I think if you go inside, he says yourself, you take that time and you go inside yourself and you ask yourself why you need to be so mean. You will find many answers there, he says. For indeed the answers lay there for as to why you are behaving so inappropriately, he says. I cannot discuss or even begin to explain to you the raw, or in raw detail, how disgusted, he says, it makes me feel when I read such atrocities, he says, such atrocious remarks. Why, children? And he's speaking to all of us, young, old alike. Why do you behave as such? Who ever taught you that it was okay to ever behave like that, my children? For it is not. And I assure you, he says, he puts up like a warning finger, I assure you, whatever it is that you are saying to them, I assure you they are saying worse atrocities back to you. For indeed, he says, there is a back and forth of energy that occurs when this type of behavior, he says, happens. And so, what I want to say to you, my child, is it does not serve you well. It does not serve them well, and it does not serve you well. He says, so stop. Less is more, my children. Stop. Less is more. We, your ones, he says, that love you and care for you so much, he says, cannot begin to express, he says, the amount of pain it gives us when we watch from above, watching you commit so many atrocities, he says. We cannot begin to tell you how it pains us to see that. You must begin to act in your own best interest, he says. And in your own best interest, he says, that is to act in kindness, to behave with kindness, he says. Those are the only things that will serve you well in this world that you have created, my children. Now, behave, he says, and go off and play well. God bless, he says. And he blows you a kiss as well. Be blessed. Well, thank you, Whitehawk, for that. I'm sorry, my eye is tearing up. I don't know why. Thanks to Whitehawk for that reading. Once again, I say how I never really know where the reading is going to go. But I believe this time round he's teaching us how to behave properly when using social media. So, good to note. I hope that you will pay it forward, the kindness that we have learned here today. And my next session or video will be on mental illness. And with that, I do have a never-ending amount of topics that I can dive into, but I do invite you to subscribe, like, leave a comment as to perhaps what you want me to channel from Whitehawk. Not a personal message as such, but maybe you want to learn on the topic of the earth. Maybe, you want to learn on the topic of love. Maybe you want to learn about, spirit guides, angels. I've already received a comment on spirit guides, so I might dive into that. But let me know. I don't know if you don't leave a message. So thanks for being here today. We'll see you again. God bless.